It was a defining moment for me, a leap of faith. My journey with data, having my small enterprise started in India, and that time I had a team of 11 people working. The defining moment was that I took it on myself as a challenge, and even more so, working together as a team of experts and educating each other, skilling up each other so that we can make it work, make it a win. Everybody wants to feel cherished and important. So, one is people skills. But from a personal side, and if I'm addressing this to even the newcomers to this industry, I would say be bold, right? There is a merit to being bold. And if you have an opinion and you feel confident about it, then speak up. Because if you don't have a strong why, even the latest technologies will fall short. So basically what I'm trying to say is bring the why and the what before the when and how.
You're listening to Data Analytics Chat, where data meets career.
Welcome to Data Analytics Chat, the podcast where we discuss the world of data, AI, and the careers shaping it. Today, my guest is Shourabh Mukherji, data and analytics expert and advisor to the C-suite, with corporate expertise with the likes of Chubb and JPMorgan Chase. In today's episode, we'll explore his career journey, the challenges that have shaped him, the insights he has for anyone looking to grow their own career. And also, we'll be looking at the data topic on core data management principles. Shourabh, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I look forward to this podcast, Ben.
Brilliant. Pleasure to have you on. So I guess, obviously, you work for some leading companies and obviously doing fantastic work. Do you want to give the listeners share your career journey?
Certainly. So I've been in the space of data and analytics for 25 years now. By education, I have a bachelor's in electronics and then computer software back when the dot-com boom happened. So I did my master's in software engineering. At that time, me and some of my batchmates, we decided to explore the journey of data warehousing in its very nascent phase. And we were using Crystal reports and that time Visual Basic, SQL, Oracle, these kind of technologies. And I started actually working with manufacturing companies, helping these firms as well as their distributors on deciding on things like chemical dosages and industrial applications. So they were kind of decision systems meant for industrial operations. And then I moved to US and got into consulting. And that brought me to financial services where I worked with some of the largest banks and helped them build data warehouse platforms ground up, as well as reports for various financial instruments, hedge funds, capital markets, so on and so forth. That was a good, I would say, 9 to 10 years in my career where I worked with banks. In 2008, I was called upon to undertake a large data warehousing operation for a merger and acquisition. And that's how I got my hands on with how an M&A situation works. Then fast forward 2015, I got into insurance in large insurance P&C company, which was yet another M&A in 2015. So kind of history repeats itself. And what I did was basically data migration, consolidation, building warehouse, master data management, which is MDM, data quality, the 6 verticals of data management that really expanded my horizon with data science, and data expertise. And towards 2023, after having large number of years in financial services, banks and insurance, I decided to impart some of my knowledge, skills, and experience to the broader industry. And that's where I am now, working with senior executives, C-suite, be that CEOs or CIOs, in helping them modernize their data ecosystems.
Quite the journey. And yeah, I guess no matter what industry you're in, it's everyone's got similar problems, haven't they?
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Cool. And how did you find obviously the move from obviously one side of the world to the other?
You mean from my roots in India to US?
Yeah.
Okay. It was a defining moment for me, a leap of faith. My journey with data, having my small enterprise started in India. And that time I had a team of 11 people working. We're basically batchmates. And then the industry took a turn and everybody dispersed. And I said I should move on as well and get on to the next level. And I had the opportunity to come to US. I did not have that many coordinates as to what I would be doing in US. And that's why I mentioned leap of faith. So I took that leap of faith and came here to New Jersey, where it's still at, and started looking for projects. And then one led to the other, and slowly and steadily I established myself. So it was an interesting journey, although it was not an easy one. Yeah.
I think you'll see. I think nowadays, people, obviously, you've got social media, things like saying it's an easy ride when it's, like I said, sometimes you just got to take that leap of faith, haven't you, and just go with it. I think you got to have that risk in you, haven't you, basically, to go with the flow.
Yes, absolutely. And that is so vital. That is very important in life.
But obviously, that's obviously quite a defining moment in your life. So has there been any defining moments that changed your career? And I guess what would they be?
Yes, when I came to US, I was working on a much smaller initiative which was already underway. And I was new to banking. And I joined a large bank. This was in end of 2005 towards 2006. And when I joined the team, there was no data warehouse and there were no analytical reports within that group. And basically, the team composition was mostly Java and some level of Unix developers. So I had to basically roll up my sleeves and build the entire platform, soup to nuts, right from architecture, data modeling, ETL, bringing the data from different sources, running the data quality, and then get it onto a reporting layer where I had to build data marts. And that time we were using business objects for the BI. So all of this was new, and more so, it was new for me to have started my life in a bank, investment bank, that too, where the reports are primarily hedge fund reports. So very high visibility, and I had to present it to the senior vice president, and in fact, even the chief investment officer. So a lot of responsibility on my shoulders, and I was really in my 20s. The defining moment was that I took it on myself as a challenge, and even more so, working together as a team of experts and educating each other, skilling up each other so that we can make it work, make it a win, and it's a win for the team, not just for me. I think that to me was a defining moment, and it has certainly helped me in the long term.
Massive, because obviously getting buy-in from stakeholders, and obviously you're early in your career as well. It's tough, isn't it, for businesses to actually? Obviously these projects are not cheap, are they? There's expense to be put out to deliver these projects.
That is true. That is true. And what I learned through this experience was obviously this is like a massive investment. We're talking about hedge funds. There is a certain synergy and trust that needs to be built with stakeholders. How does a senior vice president who has been in the industry for 30, 35 years trust a 20-year-old who may be doing the right things on such a high visibility. So the trust factor is extremely important, and that's where the people skills, communication, presentation, and the right amount of authority is very important.
Yeah, no, agreed. So how obviously you've come from, obviously I've moved from England to Spain, so it's not as far as you, and it's obviously different cultures. So how did you obviously get that stakeholder management skills? How did you learn that? Because I guess obviously when people are technical expert, that move into leadership, that's the big step, isn't it? Is being able to, I guess, build like you said, build that trust with people on board.
A lot of times, and even today, I was not born and raised in US, so I have differences in mindset, difference in communication style, accent, all of that. That is true. But there is a common language that threads all of this together, and I've worked with more than 40 countries so far. And that common language is empathy. When I started off and working with the large banks, and pretty much most of the folks on the floor were older to me. Initially, they would look at this new kid on the block and just starting off, and sometimes they would brush off. Okay, we don't have time, or come later, or ask this person or that person. And that was pretty frequent, and I understood that. And especially if you're working in a M&A situation where the uncertainties are very high, it's very hard. And that is where what I would do is I would forget technology for a moment, and I would go and speak to the person as a human to a human, right? And say, hey, then we get to know a little bit about their family, maybe their kids or their grandkids, what they do, or they're into sports or their hobbies and stuff like that. And that's how I would roll the conversations and be genuinely interested about it. And then next time I meet them, I would go back on that and say, hey, how did that work out? I saw magically a lot many times that empathy factor played in, and it transcends the differences in mindsets and languages and cultural background, because as human beings everybody wants to feel cherished and important. So I still hold that in me today, no matter what project or where it is or what kind of industry it is in. Empathy is extremely important.
Yeah, no, definitely everyone's equal, but again, you need to, treat people how you want to be treated, isn't it, really? Everyone's on their own, got their own journey, the challenges. You have to, I guess you've got to be aware and obviously,
That's right.
and help people less when you can.
That is correct. Yes.
Brilliant. So what was there a toughest challenge you faced along the way that stands out?
Again, it goes back to a combination of uncertainties and then, of course, people skills. Now, with technology evolved and matured, a lot of things have changed, but I'm talking like back 20, 25 years, most of the systems were mainframes or legacy systems, if you may, which are very much adhered and controlled by people of demographics who have been in the industry much longer than I did. So I did not understand those systems to start with. So, secondly, I had to abstract that information to a warehouse. So, that was one challenge. Secondly, every industry I worked, even though if it was within banking, we are talking about hedge funds or credit risk, private equity, various instruments, or even, let's just say, retail banking. I had to learn the domain very quickly because in the world of data, it's not just technology, it's be able to understand the business language and then translate that into a deliverable. So every time I've entered a project or a particular industry, I had to learn the domain very quickly. And for that to happen, I had to be a learner, be a student, every time have a learning mindset. So that was useful. And then of course the challenges of the how maybe things were coded previously, or you had to transition from system A to system B. There are complexities of that. And as I mentioned, I've worked through two mergers and acquisitions. These are very large M&As. I'm talking about the order of close to $30 billion, multitudes of systems on each side that had to be consolidated and migrated or sunset. We're talking about interacting with two very different cultures of companies coming together. So that's where the people skill mattered. So a combination of all this, I would say, these are tough challenges. And it's not just me alone. It takes a team. It takes an army that's aligned and is inspired to achieve.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, I guess there's a lot. With technology, you use a lot of challenges, isn't there? Again, it's people. You've got change management. You've got, like you said, there's so much that's going on, and you have to just. The time is it's tough, but obviously, probably now when you look back at it, you think you're happy, you're glad you've gone through that, because in myself, there's no pain, no gain. Like, you have to go through it.
Correct.
So,
Yep.
what skills have helped you progress into leadership, do you think?
I would certainly say, and we talked about empathy, that is very important in terms of people skill. In my 25 years in technology, I would say that rate people skills at the top. That without that, it doesn't matter what technology, things are not going to be smooth. So one is people skills. But from a personal side, and if I'm addressing this to even the newcomers to this industry, I would say be bold, right? There is a merit to being bold. And if you have an opinion and you feel confident about it, then speak up. A lot of times, maybe because of communication challenges or seniority or what have you, people don't speak up because they're hesitant or may fear that they get stood out in the meetings. But if your opinion is the right one in the room, then take that bold step and communicate it. I would certainly say that's very important because ultimately we are talking about software, which is machine. Machine will not have a judgment on who spoke in the room, but it will certainly result in an outcome. It is important to voice your opinion or your contribution to that particular project. The other thing I would say is, and this is from my personal experience, is patience plays a big role. Sometimes there are discussions and solution is not evolving and there is things are still going along, then one must definitely try to find a solution, but not be in a hurry to take things on a personal stride, but have that kind of patience, but balance it with acumen. And with agile coming in the last couple of years, there is this concept of fail fast. And I believe in that. If we can prototype something that we can agree to, and if it does not work, it's better to fail fast than to not speak up and take it till the end and then fail. So the cost is much higher if we fail towards the end than failing right away. So I'm an advocate of the fail fast theory. And I tell my team and people I work with is if you have an idea and you feel that it's the right idea, let's just put it to test. And so what if it does not work and we failed? But it's better we failed now than we failed after 6 months, right? Because if we fail now, it would be taken as an experiment, as a proof of concept. But if we fail after 6 months to a year, it would be considered a disaster, right? So that's one thing. And then I have I've gone through my 25 years and I'm just repeating myself. It took some hard knocks. So learn to deal with hardship. And there's always a sacrifice. There's something gotta give. As somebody is planning to go up the ladder or advance in their career or even in life, but there is hard work involved. It's not a cakewalk. So there is hard work and there is always a sacrifice. So one has to be ready and say, okay, what is it that I'm going to sacrifice to make it to the next level?
Agree. With any job or anything you want to achieve, there's always a sacrifice, no matter what you do. It's
Correct.
just whether you're willing to do it. And you also made an interesting point about getting people to speak up. And I guess as a leader, because you obviously deal with people that are super confident, others that are obviously more shy. How do you create that like collaborative environment where sort of any answer isn't a good answer?
Yeah. And that happens all the time. There are always a composition of people and various behavioral types. Some folks are more verbose, and some of them like to monopolize the conversations, while there are people who are more introspective and would wait out. And then I would say the common denominator is it's a trade-off from a behavioral aspect. One is speaking too much and just putting your viewpoint all the time, and this kind of overshadowing. What that actually results in is a loss of trust and maybe even respect in the person, because then the others don't get to speak up. They don't get to share their views. So I don't see that as a strength, really. On the other hand, people who are quiet and don't speak up and just keep to themselves, that's a missed opportunity of voicing your opinions. While I would say that the person who speaks a lot should mitigate that, but as well, the person who is very shy or quiet, I would encourage them to have them speak in the meetings. But the best way to evaluate both sides of the scale, as I mentioned before, is to really put things in practice through a proof of concept, maybe, and say, okay, if you have this opinion about how we should go about it, I would go around the room and say, hey, does everybody agree to this? Or if not, speak up now and let's understand. And if it's a decision to move forward, I would step into doing a prototype or a proof of concept and then see if it works or doesn't work. And if it doesn't work, then I would actually challenge the person who voiced it, saying, okay, it didn't work. What's your plan B? While communication is important, there's always has to be a ownership to it.
Yeah, I agree. There's obviously some great advice there. So we'll move on to the data topic.
Okay.
So we're going to look at core data management principles. So when we talk about core data management principles, which ones are essential, in your opinion, to guarantee data quality from a business perspective?
Yeah. So the answer is actually in the question, and that is business perspective. My experience has been this, and I've been pretty vocal about this statement, that the data actually belongs to business, right? They are the owners of data. They're the ones who create it. And ultimately, it is business who has to carry on with that data, good or bad. So it is actually the business perspective. It is the voice of the business that needs to be very clearly understood and prioritized, right? As technology folks, we often forget that. We think, oh, okay, let's just take the data and run it through data quality and figure out the gaps and then throw it back to business and say, okay, you guys have this good or bad quality of data. But I think that's a very myopic view. First, it is important to understand what is the business perspective to data. What are they going to do with it? And why are they reaching out to IT? That means they have a need for this data to maybe use it further or relate it with other data sets for business analysis, which could be for revenue or profit analysis or sales or whatever. So that is a good starting point. And then from a business perspective, understand what are the business rules to that data. I'll give you an example to substantiate this. In one of the very large insurance companies I was working with, we got the data from business, and this was basically insurance risk ratings, right? With each geography, there are risk ratings, okay, within US. So when we got the data and we looked at the address and we said some of these addresses don't look right. So we scrubbed the data, we standardized the addresses, and we got it down to the gold standard of United States Postal Service addresses. And we said, hey, we did a great job. We cleaned up the data with data quality. And we went back to business. And business said, what you guys have done, you guys have shifted our risk ratings because you moved our zip codes around. And this is going to impact our business. We cannot go with, you may have done data quality on address, but it's actually harming business more than doing good. So we failed to take a business perspective early on. And that is the point I'm trying to drive here is before we get into any kind of data management or data quality or MDM, we need to first gather the information from business. What do they want to do? Why are they doing this? What do they want to do with it? What are the business rules? What are the boundary conditions? What should be done and should not be done? And then from there, do a data quality within the permissible bounds and go back to business and review with them and said, okay, this is a before and after. Do you perceive or do you believe that this quality of data is significantly better and is going to contribute to an improvement in whatever the business wants to do? If that answer is yes, then we have achieved data quality.
Okay, interesting. So then would it be, in your opinion, does it work better when data quality is owned centrally or is more embedded with business?
So, data management as a practice, and this is where a lot of the chief data officers, it's a new role in the industry, and the chief data
Mhm.
officer role is in between a business function and an IT function. It's not very clear cut. The data belongs to business and the use. In many respects, data management is more, it is more business facing than really technology facing, right? Technology is the how piece, but the why and the what is the business side of it. So, back to your question, if you want to look at data quality or data management as a practice, ideally it should be at an enterprise level so that the consumption and distribution of the quality data is at one place. But sometimes, especially with larger companies and companies that are multi geography for compliance and regulation reasons or for audit purposes, you cannot have the entire enterprise sit its data quality at one place. And so there could be various factors to that. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. So we look at needs analysis, and I see it can be, I guess, like a technical exercise. So how should businesses reframe it to ensure like they're actually solving the right problems?
Yeah. So needs analysis is very critical, right? And it is a language between business and the technology folks, really. Needs analysis stems from design thinking. It's a part of the design thinking paradigm. So I break down needs analysis in three parts. One is the stated need, which is to say we are gathering requirements, building use cases, and the business says, hey, I need this kind of report for my customer segmentation or customer journey or doing a customer 360, and we are looking for these kind of data attributes and so on and so forth. So that's pretty clear. That can be documented and well understood. So those are stated needs. The second level is what I call as implied needs. Implied needs are what would be taken for granted, right? But sometimes not stated. For example, business is expecting reports, but it is implied that these reports should, they're probably real time and the performance should be like under 2 seconds, right? But it's not stated. Maybe it's part of a NFR or some kind of a technical spec, but it has not been stated. It's implied. So it is always good to figure out what could be implied and convert those implied needs into stated needs. And then the third, which is the most difficult and challenging, are what I call the hidden needs. Hidden needs could be it could be psychological, it could be political, it could be compliance and regulation related, it could be sentimental. So these are like most likely these are human psychology related, right? To give you an example, you know, going back to the reports, right? We might do a report which is talking about sales performance, and the company has their sales staff across regions or across businesses. And then maybe the report is being viewed by the chief sales officer or the chief marketing officer. But there could be certain criterias where, for a particular group of sales or specific individuals, there need to be considerations, and it cannot be everything could not be one and zeros, right? It's not always a logical output. Sometimes, because we are all humans here, there is always that gray area. There's always that non-linear zone, which I like to call. That's where these hidden needs stem from. So these are difficult to figure out, but more times than not, these hidden needs surface when there's, let's say, a UAT or a true production happens, and that time we said, no, we can't do this. We need to remove this criteria, or we need to mitigate it through some kind of special conditions. So, anyways, long story short, that's how I look at how we can derive various needs through the need analysis.
And obviously, do you get times where stakeholders come to you with something, a need they think they need, but it's not actually what they need?
Yes, that happens. That happens quite often. So, one way to, besides the three categorizations of needs, it is also very important to rank the needs in terms of priorities and urgencies, right? So business may say, I need these 50 things. Okay. So out of these 50, which ones are most important, most priority in terms of business impacts? And which ones do you need on immediate basis versus can wait for 2 to 3 months or maybe even 6 months? So I always like to put this kind of a template on the needs in terms of priority and urgency. And then once that is set, what I like to do is look at it from a feasibility standpoint, right? Like from a technology feasibility, right? If something is, for example, if there is a need which is not important and can wait, but it's highly complex, I would not take that up first if possible. I would rather take something that's urgent and important to business and has a low to medium complexity, which are quick wins. And a lot of times I have seen, including in my approach in projects, that we miss that. Because to show the quick wins that impact business, that are important to business, that builds trust and that builds a tempo. And that that creates a good perception from the start, you know. Otherwise, as technologies, we get into the complexities of code and everybody is doing their things. Sometimes it becomes a tunnel vision. And after 6 months, we deliver something which wasn't as critically important, but it was heavily complicated. But business now says, hey, I needed that other thing, which I'm already delayed now and it's in the red. So that's what we want to avoid.
Okay, perfect. And then, so what does a strong data solution framework look like?
So I have been blessed in a way and also practice this as much possible. I believe in frameworks, right? If one can come up with a framework, in this case, let's just say it's a data framework that can be reusable, scalable, and simple to understand. And I think the third point is important, simple to understand, because it's got value. then it becomes a kind of a cookie cutter model, right? As rinse and repeat. And that is where I learned the art of data warehousing, how to build those kind of frameworks, especially for enterprise warehousing or building data marts. And after a couple of years, it becomes second nature, right? So you understand, okay, there is going to be a concept of a product or a region, or there is a temporal view to it and transactions and all of that. But you can pretty much put it into a framework. And if we can have that kind of a mindset, that is enormously useful, right? The same thing, I worked on MDM and we took some time to build those frameworks. We had to rehaul the way we look at the data model per se. But it's all hinged on business definitions again, right? What is it that the business wanted? But that drove a lot of understanding of frameworks. And then we could scale this framework from one hub to say 10 hubs in 4 years, which was impossible to do, right? Even now, when we are talking about AI or the other emerging technologies, the concept of framework is very important. Otherwise, what happens is everybody is doing their own things. A seasoned developer has a different style of building a particular solution versus somebody coming out of college, or maybe the senior person retired and things are just unattended. If we don't have a framework, then that institutional knowledge is lost and things get very murky. But if there's a solid framework which is rinse and repeat and very simple to understand, then what happens? Somebody coming in new or maybe even joining in new in the industry can understand this framework because it's simple to understand, and it's well drafted, documented. Then that solution can live for much longer than a random ad hoc kind of a solution.
Interesting. So do you think a lot of businesses get this wrong in terms of the architecture and the framework in general?
Yes, it certainly starts with right from the architecture, right? How are you
Mm.
solutioning from a solution architecture standpoint? I'll give you an example in terms of building a framework. In any industry, for that matter, there are various systems, various lines of businesses, maybe even various regions to, and that if it's a large company. So the definition of a customer could be different in each department. It could be different by lines of business. For example, if I speak of insurance, one of the companies I was working with, the definition of customer could have been a policyholder. But the claims department, for them, the definition of customer is a claimant. For the marketing guys, the definition of customer could be a prospect, or for a broker, or for a distribution department, the customer could be the broker dealer, right? So everybody is defining customer differently. But if we can come up with a common business definition model where we can have, whether it's an individual or an organization, defined as a role to that customer, then that role defines how we view that entity, right? So then that becomes part of the framework. Now, what that does is it brings in scalability, right? So then this framework can be used by the broker dealers because the role is a broker dealer, although it could be the same Shourabh, but he's a broker dealer in that department, or Shourabh could be a claimant in the claims department, or Shourabh could be a prospect for marketing. But Shourabh is Shourabh. So I, as the entity, have not changed. So that is a good starting point than having my name as in 20 different ways in 20 different systems, right? So that is where we build in this common framework, a common definition, and then from there build it out into a solution architecture, bringing in data management and mastering the data and all the good stuff, and maybe have the processes for ingestion and distribution, be that batch or real time and what have you. But we paved the foundation in a way that this solution can work in US and it can also work in Singapore, right? Um, because the foundations are solid, right? So that's the kind of framework.
And then I guess, what are the most effective ways to distribute data so it's not just collected, but actually used to drive decisions?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I often ask the business because that's the origination point. They are the ones who own the data and who are making the request. Uh, and the question is about why. Like, why do you want to do this? The why is very important because that would lead the business to answer the question, how do they want to use this data? Like, why do they want to do it? And what would be the end? What would be their North Star, the end result, right? So, with that why, we get a better appreciation of what do they want to do with it and what business drivers are, as you said, what would drive those decisions. Because if they don't have a strong why, and it's not often done, but I strongly advise it, the technology folks should actually challenge that. And I'll give you an example. Most times you would see business, they're very happy using spreadsheets. And Excel has been there for, I don't know what, 35, 40 years now, right? I call it the most durable tool there is, right? A simple spreadsheet. It's not fancy, but it's been used for the last 40 years, right? And business loves it, right? So I always like to ask business this question: why do you want to move out of spreadsheets? And they got to give me a compelling answer. And maybe it is because there are too many of them, it's all over the place. They want to unify the data, they want to look at it at one place, right? But let business come out with those answers. Like they might say, I want to do financial analysis, or I want to do customer segmentation, what have you. Once those answers can be elicited from business, then we have a strong case because there is a buy-in versus some IT guy sold to business that, hey, this is the best shiny toy that you must have. And because business got sold into it, I don't think that's going to cut it. Because if you don't have a strong why, even the latest technologies will fall short.
Okay, interesting. I guess with business then, so you've got leaders, if they're struggling to connect business objectives with data initiatives, how can you align across stakeholders?
Yeah, it aligns to what we discussed. I would say build the picture together. The business stakeholders and IT stakeholders, business obviously has a why to start with, and they have a vision like what the end picture, what does the picture look like? It's almost like manifestation, right? They want to do some, let's say, analytics or digital transformation, and they have some idea about it. They may not be able to articulate to the dot, but they have some ideas about it, right? So when they have those ideas and those desires, that is where I think we can build the picture together, and IT folks can come in and say, okay, you want to run these kind of analytics? Well, we have done something similar. We can show it to you or demo, or maybe do a quick POC and make that picture more aligned, right? Which in the architecture, if you look at it from an architecture angle, we call it the target state architecture. So in the target state architecture, you say, okay, this is your current state and this is where you want to go from point A to point B. And in your point, this is how your world is going to look like. So that buy-in is very important. So basically what I'm trying to say is bring the why and the what before the when and how, right?
Interesting. And then it's all about, again, you've touched on it before, it's building that, being able to build up the trust, isn't it, between the teams?
Absolutely. Very important. Yes.
Cool. So let's move on to the final question. So with AI, automation, and sort of the new data tools changing the way businesses are run, How should businesses evolve their data management strategies to stay ahead?
Yeah. I might sound a bit controversial here because everybody seems to be on the AI boat nowadays. But the truth is that the success of AI, truly in terms of production deployment of AI, as well as the usage of AI or Gen AI, what have you, y- the percentage does not look very encouraging. And it's probably improving, which is a good thing. But a lot of it is also hype. And what I would say is a combination of what we have discussed. Number one, before we even talk about AI, we really need to understand from a business lens what is their why, right? That's the most important. Like, do the needs analysis, understand what does their end picture look, what does a picture look like, the target state, right? And in that, to reach that target state, most certainly data is involved. So how is the data looking today? Is it's probably fragmented, it's all over the place. The quality of data is not good and all of that. So before we even look at AI, there has to be a very strong foundation on data. And that is where the data management comes in. Consolidate the data, cleanse the data, master the data, curate it, have a data stewardship, have a governance charter, right? Make those kind of data policies, regulatory policies. Make the data foundation very strong, right? Because we could have AI, but if it's sitting on poor quality of data or lack of data management, then it's almost as good as saying that I have a beautiful looking cake with beautiful frosting, but the cake underneath is has gone sour, is bad. Who's going to eat that cake? So that's the analogy, right? So here the foundation is that of having very core data principles and good quality of data that's aligned to what business wants and why they want it, right? And from there, we look at where AI can play its part, right? Now, and again, I'm not discounting AI because I myself am very keen on where AI is heading towards. There are certainly a lot of advantages of using AI, especially for procedural operations, things that are very routine that can be automated through AI. Even some level of scripting can be automated through AI. So AI is a very good enabler. But if, let's say, to my earlier point, if we are running some kind of a statistics with AI or building LLMs and driving decisions off of AI, if the underlying data is not coherent, if the data quality is poor, then you know the output is going to be very noisy, and that's more harm than good because that's going to drive wrong business decisions or maybe create more confusion, and ultimately the project gets scrapped. Where I see value with AI today is certainly in terms of, and I've been part of some of these projects, we're talking about AI driven chatbots and AI assist in especially in different, for let's say education or for back office operations, and then AI coming in for content management or video rendering. A lot of that is a good thing. But when it comes to tier one business critical decision making, I would say, in my humble opinion, we cannot discount data management.
So I guess in essence, it's not about having the latest technologies. Again, it's getting the foundations right so people and processes are ready to adapt.
Yes, that is absolutely accurate.
Yeah, and I think obviously, it's obviously everyone's always pushing for the new tech, aren't they? And it's, I guess, the foundations is massively overlooked in business, and I think it is definitely there's more noise around these topics happening on the marketplace.
Correct. Correct. Yes.
Brilliant. Cool. It's been fantastic having you on, Shourabh. You provide some amazing insight and loved your career story. And obviously, thank you for your time. And I obviously wish you the best in your future career.
Thank you so much, Ben, and I appreciate it.
You've been listening to Data Analytics Chat Podcast. Subscribe to our channel for more stories and insights in data and career.